So I'm Eva. Hello, Zoomlians. My name. I want to give you a little bit of me beyond the bio. It will involve a hair journey, as many of us have experienced. I embrace. I am not hiding. I'm out here being me. So I use the Spanish pronunciation of a word that is often pronounced in English. So my name is not Eva. My name is Eva, pronounced in Spanish, or if you're from the East Coast, like forever and ever. I am Puerto Rican, New Eurekan to be precise, born here. I grew up in MTV, and that's all I got to say about that. I have a working class foundation, and so I like to say that I'm one of those kids that went to the movie theater growing up, and I didn't know there was a concession stand. My mother, hurried us along and opened a 2-liter bottle of soda, and poured our sodas into cups, and that's how I grew up. And we had the best snacks. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't have rice and beans in the movie theater? What do you mean? My mother was serving up food on like paper plates. And that's all I got to say about that. My family is passionate and they're loud talkers. We had a lot of conversations at the dinner table, the breakfast tables, politics, everything you're not supposed to talk about, we talked about loudly at the table with each other. And there wasn't too much hierarchy. I mean, when they said be quiet, they meant it. But we could disagree about everything out loud, and they wanted to spar. So that was kind of the home culture that I experienced, and that will be important later. And then beyond that, I'm also have that eldest daughter mojo, right? So we are we are part of the solution of every problem, whether it's hold their hand, bring this thing, go find an answer, go Google this. Whatever, right? Can anybody else identify with being having eldest daughter mojo? You don't have to be a daughter to have eldest daughter mojo. Okay, okay. And so I'll say too, that's my career, like many people in, formerly in the DEIB space, started by having to create services for yourself. You know what I'm talking about. Right, so I went to Rutgers University at a time when they told us at orientation that only 10% of Latinos graduated who began the program. I was like, oh, that's kind of heavy, right? And so first generation college goer, and I went because I heard you can live there. And I was ready to leave my parents' household. So I didn't have aspirations to, be an academic. That was not my jam. My jam was somewhere else, and I jammed. And then I went into civil rights, and I worked for a period of years at the Anti-Defamation League, who at the late 90s was one of the few organizations that was doing anti-bias education. While in parallel to my graduate program, when I have a master's degree in sociology with a concentration in race and ethnicity in the United States. And that's heady conversations, but I wanted to talk about people. Talk to people about race and ethnicity in the United States. And so working with ADL at the time really provided that opportunity. And so I'm very proud of what that looked like. But we were talking about conflict and resolution as it looked like in workplace settings, but also in the classroom settings. And oftentimes we would be entering into these conversations in the wake of a bias incident or hate crime. Right, as the result of a memorandum of understanding or consent decree, right? And as you can, those were not the warmest environments to spark these conversations, right? And so somebody like me who grew up, people like me who grew up with a comfort zone around conflict, who was invited to conflict at the dinner table, was walking into rooms where the elephant was always in the room, had the best seat, had a pashmina, a drink, and we couldn't address it. And we're just like, okay, here we are. And then after that, and so I was working at ADL. I was part of the national staff at some point. And when the incident on Trayvon Martin and his murder happened, and all of a sudden, the intent, like the world was different. You know, we had the internets and hashtags and things like that. And it was really a unique time to be in civil rights, to have conversations that were super important and very rooted in history. And having the intellectual understanding and capacity from where we came, and yet having the kind of space around hope, belief, and with the integrity to lean forward anyway when the winds were pulling us way, way back. And so I needed to rest and relax, and then I went into the private independent school space to work at this cute little pre-K through 8th grade school with people who had more wealth than I had ever known in my life. And that was wild, because these precious beings, I thought I was in the frying pan in civil rights until you mess with a wealthy parent whose child is crying, who came home crying because of something they read. Or they learned something about history that they were not prepared for. And so it was like in those spaces, I started to realize that preparation, you really to take having a respect for the foundation from which more sophisticated concepts are built. And then after that, quickly left private independent schools and went into mediation. And I, always doing what Mark and I have always done. I've known Mark a couple of decades. It's the moisturizer, right? It's in the air. And because we're youthful, we also started work at 5 years old. Yeah, the laws have changed now. And so I've been doing mediation and coaching a great deal since then, like always doing that work. But what I realized in the kind of mediation I do is kind of interesting, because oftentimes the kind of mediation I'm doing is when the non-discrimination policy or affirmative action policy, whatever they call it in your organization, the problem, somebody in the organization knows there's not enough meat on this for you to have the solution or a resolution that's going to feel good. And so they offer mediation as a way to get two conflicting people in conflict to engage in a different way. And so, so then it's a blend of mediation and coaching. And out of that, started realizing there were many, many people who were engaged in a conflict, who were part of a conflict, and both people kind of needed to sharpen some skills. And the skills might be listening, skills might be feedback. Oftentimes, I'm helping leaders or people like well-prepared professionals, helping them understand what reflection is. And so, like, beyond ruminating on the problem or the details or the facts, I help folks drop down a little further into like our thinking into what we believe in. And so out of that came out More Connected Humans, which is what my company name is and the work that we do today. And so we do experiential learning, coaching, mediation, transformational thought leadership. I write a lot about this in a way that's informed about it. So we explore kind of our cultural precepts and our underpinnings that lead us to believe that the way we are approaching work or the way we are approaching or engaging each other, our why, our deeper why. In the way that I think about healing, I also do quite a bit of work in the somatic healing, trauma-informed work, trauma-informed schools, trauma-informed everything. But beyond that type of healing, it's really about some of our cultural practices that we need to heal from. I too have worked in organizations that actually actively discouraged employees from bringing conflict to each other, naming conflict. They would much prefer you bring your conflict to a supervisor who is going to do something about it, incorporate it into, a performance plan, triangulate and really pull us apart in a way when maybe we can actively just lean in a little bit towards each other, explore and figure out what needs aren't getting met, or like what kind of shifts, major or minor, that could happen that can get even more needs met. And then transformation. I am actively looking. So this is my lofty wish, that I get to leave this planet having transformed culture in some way. I don't care. I'm an Aquarius. This is what we think. This is how I move. And so we're gonna play today, kind of, sorta. So today, I'm gonna say on Zoom, I'm trying to replicate exactly what's gonna happen in the room. So you're gonna be in chat room with your homies a lot. And then you all I'm gonna say this to you as professionals. When I say pairs, I mean 2 people. I know, and the people are like, but there's 3 people at our table. You, the third, will turn around and talk to somebody else. Because I know, it's a suggestion. There's math and science involved. ¿Me entiendes? Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. Not working. Did my battery die? My battery is dead. Can somebody hit? Oh, it worked. Okay, perfect. Did you do that? Thank you. All right, so when I talk about transformative community, you can read it yourself, but I'm going to say this. You can take pictures of these slides. I'm going to give you, online, you have a digital PDF of the entire slideshow. You all are going to get a worksheet on the next slide. That's going to be on a QR code. We're going to assist our neighbors who haven't utilized that function on their phone, tablet, or whatever. Or you're going to share your screen with somebody else, okay? So a transformative community is a workplace culture built on intentional relationships, shared accountability, and the ongoing improvement of how people connect, collaborate, and care for one another. It prioritizes inclusion, trust, and psychological safety by identifying shifting behaviors, practices, or systems that create division, disconnection, or unnecessary barriers to full participation. That's pretty lofty. So this is the digital handout. The slide that you just saw is on this, and every other slide is in there. Below the image of the slide on your digital handout is an area for note taking. So on the next slide, I'm going to ask you to break into pairs with some questions. And so I want to invite you to use that. Now listen, you can totally blow me off and it will not hurt my feelings. It would just complicate your capacity to see. When I go to the next slide, you won't see this definition. You see what I'm saying? And it's a big definition. So that's why I invite you to use that thing. But you can use your paper notes. You could continue to write on your sticky notes at home. That's cool. But it may be a little easier on that. So if you can do that. Does that make sense? Anybody questions so far? Anything? Beautiful. You got it. All right. So for a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to silently review the definition. You're going to see, I'll go back for a second while you are figuring out the QR code. I want you to raise your hand if you need a little tech support, and Tannenbaum staff is going to come and pinch hit and help you get it. And then we'll break into pairs, but don't Don't break into pairs yet. Actually do a review of that and then answer the question for yourself. What stands out to you on this definition? What is dropping down into a different place and saying, wow, like I never thought of that sentence or those words having anything to do with community. All right, go on. All right, welcome back. Is our Zoom hummies back? Okay, beautiful. Hey, buddy. Okay. So instead of doing a bunch of stop and starts, because it's important for me anyway to have our Zoom participants feel included in this session, and I would rather give you kind of a deeper experience with you all than to do like pecking. So this next couple of slides are gonna feel like a fire hose, right? That we can pretend feels more like a massage than like a violent spray of water in your face. You know what I'm saying? But like make it good. So I'm gonna review 3 skills or concepts. And then at the other part of it, at the end of it, you'll have a deeper conversation with, members of the community here, okay? So I just want you to, and by the way, for learners who are active like me, I absolutely encourage you to stand up. You can pace on the side. You can just stand up. We'll have a stretch at the outside at the end point of this. But know that if you're standing, if you're pacing, I know you're taking care of yourself in order to be as present as you can, right? Those sweets were good. And we've been sitting a lot, right? Somebody has said something, I heard somebody say like sitting is the new smoking. And like, I felt highly stigmatized. So I sit a lot, right? And it's not good. Well, anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So I wanna push us to the next slide. So one concept I want us to think about is listening to transform. And I spend a lot of time on these definitions. And again, you have them in your digital handout on Zoom. You have it on the PDF, and you have the digital handout. And after each definition is a fillable notes section that you can take notes on right there, so it's in together. So listening for transformative community is hearing what is said with the intentional practice of receiving others with curiosity, presence, and humility. Listening is for the purpose of curiosity, presence, and humility. It invites us to slow down, to hold space without rushing to respond, and to honor what is shared. Not just the words, but the emotions, the silences, and the truths behind them. In workplaces, sometimes we are like encouraged to just follow the facts. And what is actually being communicated is sometimes outside of the words being expressed. So this act of listening invites you to kind of listen on all those levels. And this kind of listening builds trust, deepens relationships, and creates space for healing, growth, and collective transformation. And it's how we weave belonging into our communities thread by thread. So the difference between inclusion and belonging is authentic connection. Inclusion is this intention to invite people into the room and make sure they have space and the things that they need in order to participate. And belonging is the sweet sauce in that is the actual, genuine, authentic connection and the invitation to have somebody show up as they are. In my framework, listening is not passive. It's a skill of connection, a practice of investment, and a commitment to building something deeper than agreement or understanding. So some strategies. This is where the fire hose comes in. Hopefully, I'll give you so much to think about that you'll go back to the digital handout and parse it even further. Okay. So listening to transform is like physically orienting yourself to the speaker in a manner in which they feel safe, right? It's also about making sure everyone is physically comfortable, space, volume. in like inclusive practices, right? Sometimes many of us come from family. It may be culture. It may be family culture. And those considerations we learn when the more we talk to people and we get to understand them, right? Like some people really don't like us to hold their gaze. And some people would like it. And you get to know a person. And this is the reason why listening to transform is also about mirroring back the communication style that they're offering you. And as leaders, for those of us that are leaders in the room, you may know this already, but I want to make clear that it's an offering as a reminder and not necessarily presupposing it's first-time information. And while listening, we're seeking 2 to 3 beautiful nuggets to be curious about that's specific to their conversation. Like for example, you used this word to describe this thing. I've never heard that word associated with this type of thing. Tell me more about your choice of word, right? That invites more information into where they're coming from, right? Like I've had conversations with leaders about certain things and they use certain words and they're going off an article they read in business school 25 years ago. And then I was like, that's fascinating. Like when I read something similar and just in the last couple of years and the terms that we're using is something different. So I like to know, I'm glad to know that was the origin, that was the precursor to this concept, right? That's helpful to know because at least they're coming from somewhere, right? And notice what's not being said. When in conflict, sometimes people will, in mediation in particular, they'll tell you about what the thing is and they may just completely avoid talking about how they're feeling and how it's impacting them in the workplace. And I say things like, I noticed you didn't mention how you're feeling. How are you feeling about it, right? Like, how are you feeling in your body right now after telling me the facts? And sometimes I could say, I notice your face is getting red right now. Help me understand what's happening. Is it frustration? Is it anger? Is it nerves? And fill that gap in for me so that I don't fill it with some information that may not be accurate. Checking in about completeness. This is a thing that I think feels wrong. It feels too much. But when it becomes a part of the culture, it's helpful because some people, I'm a fast talker and I think out loud a lot of time. I don't need a lot of prep to answer a question, honestly. And I personally don't have a fear of getting it wrong or feeling like, saying, what, that was incomplete. I said something 10 minutes ago. I want to add this to what I just said 10 minutes ago. And some people want to be complete in the way that they say it, and their pace may be slower. So when I'm listening to transform, I am checking in about, is there anything more you want to say about it? Or do you want, you have the right to loop back on this. Or ending your, whatever you're going to say is like, I'm complete. Does anybody connect with me? See this? Like cowabunga fingers? I don't know how else to say that. I don't know why I call it cowabunga fingers, but it feels right. Cowabunga fingers, connect with me if you use the phrase, I'm complete when you're done with an idea. Anybody? All right, so you got a new thing. Cute. All right. Anything happening in the chat? Nothing. Perfect. I mean, it's not perfect. If y'all have something to say in the chat, we have somebody in the Zoom room, in the physical room, who's going to be your voice. So if you have a question, throw it in the chat so we can introduce it in the room. All right. The next concept I want to speak to is deepening reflection. So this is not just thinking. This is reflecting, right? Like reflecting what is inside of you. So reflection for transformative community is the intentional and active pause we take to look within, not just to understand ourselves, but to understand our impact on others. This is where we're considering where our current positioning on something or a present belief how that might be what might inform that, but also what is that communicating out to others, and what are some other ideas that may not be incorporated that you can? What can I add to this? It's a practice of noticing our patterns, assumptions, emotional responses so we can show up with more clarity, compassion, and accountability. Reflection helps us stay rooted in our values and even more in moments of tension or uncertainty. Again, you have that on the digital handout. I'm going to ask you to go back to it in a sec. So some strategies for deepening your reflection. And I want to say that for folks who lead meetings, I invite you to incorporate reflection time within the context of a meeting. I'll tell you why. So when you're deepening your reflection, try to begin with intention. Like, what am I hoping to understand about this thing? So sometimes there's a conflict, sometimes there's a thing, sometimes, and I'll just say it, when you make a mistake, I don't know, perfectionism is a big part of workplace culture, just culture, and especially in workplace culture. And imbued on imperfection is a fear about how you would be perceived as a professional. And how you're perceived as a professional may be linked to a belief whether you may or may not have a job, right? Or my evaluation, is this going to reflect negatively on my evaluation? And according to my calendar, I'm asking for a raise in 6 months, right? And you have that in your head. And then tied to that is my ability, to take my family on vacation, right? Or tied to that may be, things are tight. We know that there is a ripple effect happening in the economy. Tomorrow ain't promised. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? So do you know how many layers did I just go down from speaking perfectly? And so reflection gives us an opportunity to name what's present in a way that we at least understand the energy that comes with the default no or default irritation, right? Because there's... So begin with your intention. Make space internally and externally and allow yourself to be grounded mentally, emotionally, and physically. And in trauma-informed work, we always talk about name it to tame it, right? So I will say things like, okay, I am worried you're going to think less of me because I made this mistake, so I'm just going to say that. Or it's important for me that I prepared for this because it's my intention for you to leave with something like that's important and memorable in the best ways. So now I don't named it. And it's not like I don't have to prove something. I'm just telling you that this is the energy with which I've come, right? And so we can invite our supervisees just to name it and tame it, so that at least you know that this is running in the background in the conversations, or at least they know that the meeting after this one is a really important meeting. I want to be present for you, but I'm letting you know right now. I feel my worry creeping up about the next couple of meetings that I'm going to have. And it doesn't have anything to do with you. When you're reflecting, get present in the body, breathing to relax and so on, noticing what is currently happening in your body. And practice curiosity, avoiding judgment and what I feel in the moment and what did I need. I like to, when I'm reflecting and saying, okay, what could have been added to the moment that could have made that hard moment feel a little bit better? And it might have been something like an acknowledgement. Like, I just need that person who gave me that really harsh feedback to say, I know you prepared. Or it was clearly evident you made a big effort, right? And that's in my reflection piece. Then I recognize that I'm not projecting my need for acknowledgement on this person. I'm just acknowledging that that's an element of what I desire more in this workplace setting. A little bit more acknowledgement. when I have supervised folks, I recognize that there are certain people for whom verbalized acknowledgement is crucial to their ability to persist through conflict in a way that feels safe for them. And so in transformative community, it's really about psychological safety, and our psychological safety needs are unique to us. And so if an acknowledgement is saying, you're doing the best that you can, and we keep sliding back on what we can offer you, and I know this, at least they say, well, at least somebody said it out loud, you're right. And it's not me. So using reflective anchors is another one. What moved me? When did I start to feel differently about what was going on? Like that piece right there, reflective anchors, you can generate in advance. And on my website, you'll see in the tools section, I'll offer a bunch of reflective anchors that you could just pick, like which one feels normal and which one feels good for me to answer this about this topic that has nothing to do with it. And the anchor keeps us away from processing the details, right? That has you ruminating on the top of the conflict when you need to go on the bottom or go further down. And then accepting that some things will be unresolved. Resmaa Menakem, who's a psychologist, and he talks about, he's coined the term somatic abolition in terms of us freeing our bodies from our racial histories and racial traumas. He uses the term nibbling. And he's like, you can nibble at a problem and you don't have to gorge, right? And that's what long drives are for. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, and the last concept is nurturing trust. Nurturing trust in transformational communities means intentionally cultivating a relational environment. Let's pause on that for a second. We're nurturing a relational environment where people feel safe to be seen, heard, challenged, and supported. And trust is not assumed. It is built slowly through repeated acts of integrity. Should I run that back? It is built slowly through repeated acts of integrity, presence, vulnerability, and care. In transformational context, trust is both a container and a catalyst. It holds people through discomfort and enables risk-taking necessary for personal and collective change. So if your culture is one that in a meeting, trust doesn't exist, then you have a flurry of meetings after the meetings after the meeting. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, just make eye contact with me if you know the meeting after the meeting, right? And all of a sudden, you allocated, in case you're one of those workplaces, I'm not being shady. I'm just saying, like, you are one of those workplaces that only allocates 37 minutes for the meeting. And everybody's like, are we clear? And everybody goes, uh-huh. And now the next 2 hours are meetings after meetings. Or like a message saying, can I talk to you offline? Right? And so nurturing trust is really important. And so some strategies is really start with your self-work. I'm gonna be honest. All of this is about starting with your self-work and practicing humility, activating your curiosity, and reflecting regularly. Like, why can't I say to my supervisor that they keep coming up with ideas that are not rooted in immediacy? Like I can't do this immediacy. That is, we need a runway for that. Leading with presence, showing up fully, being consistent, being attuned to emotional cues, and respecting boundaries. Some people have genuine boundaries that we don't necessarily articulate, and we need to. And some people don't, and there might be gender reasons why we don't communicate those boundaries, but boundaries help us in so many ways. Now, normalizing repair, like reparative work sometimes seems really soft for corporate spaces, but I'm gonna give you an example. I once talked with a company who 2 departments didn't work with each other very well. And it turns out that there was a leader in one of the departments who made an egregious error of judgment, and the entire department was holding animus against this leader for a supervisor who had retired 10 years previous. And it was completely the us versus them mentality, and that they don't understand us, and that there was a bias element in it, and I'm gonna say, dare I say, prejudice element, although not directed at race, ethnicity, gender, and other identifiers. It was a belief that the nature of their work was devalued or deprioritized, and that they needed serious repair. And so making space for that harm repair, welcoming the feedback, and staying in relationship becomes crucial, because 10 years later, you know, all beef goes bad in 10 years, doesn't it? Right? What's the shelf life of beef? It's at least 10, you know what I'm saying? It's not 10 years. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's, I don't know what, there's a beef that's like aged beef. I don't know. Anyway, I'll leave it there. And another feature, and on my website in the tools section, there's 10 takeaways. I could only fit 4 on the slide. So build micro moments of trust and investment using rituals like a grounding prompt. Like, for example, at the ritual, I say rituals and people are like, rituals? No, this is a unique group to use the word rituals. But starting a meeting with a grounding prompt, like something that you found valuable or landed beautifully on your heart this morning. Just as a grounding kind of thing, like, I'm here. Or at the end of it, and so like, I'm at 5 minutes of reflection, and I need folks to just jot down questions they still have and leave it with me. Right? And just the consistency of this work is both an invitation that as a leader, or as a, like if you're holding the meeting, that I can hear hard things and be in relationship, right? Or like a moment to say, we are here together beautifully. Or what can I do to make this a beautiful moment? Affirming effort, growth, and courage, and inviting laughter, play, and levity. In my leadership style, it involves music a lot. And so think about how you might use that. So now you're gonna talk with each other. We're gonna play something called a 4-part story. And in my work, and I'm speaking on behalf of introverts. I'm an introvert, highly contested, but I am. Stop laughing that loud, Mark. Don't do me like that. I am. Because after this session, I will take a nap. And it might be because I'm in my 50s too, but whatever. Okay. So the first part of every processing thing for me begins with reflection, right? The introverts, before we talk to people, we like a little time to process. And I will say the empaths need it too. Because the empaths will listen and hold your story dear to them, and cannot or will not simultaneously take that time for themselves. So this time right now, take it serious, is your investment in what it is that you might be thinking, holding, and saying to yourself, okay? So I would like for you to silently review the definitions for listening, reflection, or trust. If you wanna just marinate on one, go on and do that. And take note of what stands out to you. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes independently. And so like the extrovert who's just dying to talk, just like, I've been quiet the whole day. Nobody lets me talk to anybody. I promise you will talk to them. But your gift to them is silence right now, right? 3 minutes. I will keep time and hold that to you. So 3 minutes, just review the definitions And just take note of what might be like standing out to you as it relates to those definitions. Promise, I am recording. Okay, welcome back. So in Zoomlandia, you're gonna break into triads, and in the room, same, into triads, which is what? How many? 3. Very good. Yeah. So, and the reason why I'm saying 3 and that number, I would like for you not to have an entire table discussion, is in the next section, we're gonna do story sharing. And if we have the whole table, then what happens is the introverts run away and never tell their story. So, and some of you all are like, why are you telling our secrets? Because I'm one of you. So you're right? So we're gonna go into triads, and you're gonna meet new people. So invite somebody over. And then you're just gonna discuss what feels core to the 3 definitions with your small group. What feels core? Answer that any way you want. It's intentionally vague to mess you up. Pause for a second. Your next set of directions is we're gonna do a story swap. And this is where I'm gonna invite you sharing a brief example. You might have been doing it already. And that's only because you're brilliant. And share a time when you felt either a strong sense of belonging or care in a work setting or disconnected. And then what, if anything, did that example have to do with one of the 3 that we reviewed, one of the 3 skills that I just reviewed with you? It might have nothing, and that's okay. But that's your prompt. And so introverts, can you raise your hands? Introverts and empaths, raise your hand. Raise your hand. You begin. You talk first. You talk first. Don't lie. You can't take it back. So we had a question in the Zoom over the last section. And so, Megan, you want to read the question?
Yes. So someone in the chat asked, in a culture steeped in speed and very heady, any thoughts for slowing down for reflection that would not be considered woo-woo?
Yeah. First of all, I love woo-woo. I love, not to be confused with woo-woo, but there is a lot of discussion in the workplace about the importance of mindfulness and mind-body alignment. And so I may not use the words that I use, but I show up authentically by design, because I think it's important to model different ways of leadership and speech and communication. And so I make that gamble in rooms like this. Some leaders have said things like, I want us to be aligned and ready to move forward. So let's take a beat. I'll set the clock and give us 2 minutes to be fully human and write down our questions and just kind of let it filtrate. And I have a client, Nature Sacred. I'm going to shout them out because they're amazing people. Nature Sacred, they're a foundation and now emerging nonprofit. And they create natural spaces in stressed environments, financially stressed, economically stressed, physically stressed environments. And they offer landscaping and architectural design for free. That's amazing. So we say, let us aerate and filtrate. I know, right? I love it too. So like the gardeners in the room understand the importance of popping some holes in the ground so that the nourishment, the water, can get down to the roots. And most human beings, we need that same sort of consideration. We calcify throughout the day, when we should be breaking it up and making sure that we can make the choices and we see what's available to us. And as a supervisor, I would like to know where your capacity is right now. Because don't tell me yes. If you know, it's probably at best a maybe and probably a no. Just tell me. Like, I can't take this on for 3 days. Right? And then do whatever it is that you need to do to let me know that that's happening. Because if I have a need to know that it's in process so I don't have to micromanage you, Just let me know when you start it. That's a bit of communication. Is like, my needs are met and your needs are met, right? So I think that there are ways to approach these kind of kindnesses that wrap around the people that are with you, as opposed to having a professional expectation that can't be met, because maybe you do have a caregiver who has somebody whose phone is going off because they just had their family member or friend member is going through something and they need to be humanized in this moment. And as a leader, you want to offer them 5 minutes, 3 minutes at the beginning of a meeting to become present. As a leader, I can also offer somebody to say, there is acknowledgement. There's a lot happening in the organization right now, and I know if you're stressed, I'm stressed, so I know you're stressed. Let's just take a moment to take a breath and recognize that we're going to do the best that we can with what we can access right now. And that's going to be good. And we'll figure it out, right? That's the trust building. It's just acknowledging that we got humans in the space. I want to invite some of the wisdom, some of the group wisdom that's in the room. We have a microphone in the back. About what are some of the things that you might have been jotting down already in terms of what small things we could practice or shift in our respective workplaces. So one of the things that I did when I was working in higher ed, I want to share it because I know there's a lot of practitioners in the room. I worked in higher ed. I was the first director of multicultural student affairs, first of her name, on the campus. And I remember when they first created the office, I was on the outskirts of campus, and it took a year for my office that was on the outskirts to be moved into the administrative building where all the other senior administrators were. And then they put my office next to the director of judicial affairs. The Office of Multicultural Student Affairs was next to the Office of Judicial Affairs. And I know, right? So there's, depending on your orientation to the problem, it's either, scary or like a blessing. And I shared an administrative assistant with the director of judicial affairs, whose husband, because this is rural upstate New York, so cut everybody some slack, whose husband was university police. Okay, you got the visual, right? So the director of multicultural student affairs, who had students of color, we used to refer to them at the time, in my office all the time, passing the director of judicial affairs, and oftentimes there was a police officer who was a very large man. There. And so, and I was Puerto Rican in upstate New York. I'll just leave that there. And I had to build relationships with folks in that tense moment. People had tensions about where I was situated and wanted my office to thrive. And other folks were feeling like it was a symbol, like they were saying something under the surface, right? And I was really focused on building relationships with my colleagues, right? So anyway, fast forward, it's winter. My administrative assistant invited me to her house for a hot tub in the winter. I know, right? I don't know. Just leave that where it is. But I was like, that sounds cool. So I went to her house and we were in the hot tub drinking hot cider because that was like what they did. And I was like, okay, cool. And her large police officer husband came in to the hot tub and I was like, oh my God, he has half clothes on. I was like, this is awkward. And we talked and he wanted to know about my office and what was the reason for the office, because it was a new office. And so I was like feeling like I needed to legitimate the work. And I talked about it, and it's in the way, the words that he used clearly demonstrated that there was a lag in his understanding about racial politics, gender politics, religious politics. Like he did not have a foundation, a firm foundation of certain concepts. Anyway, we hung out. He asked me a lot of questions. I rolled through it. And then he started coming, and then later on, he's pop up in the office and have a seat I had a sofa. He would pop up and he would talk to me, and I don't understand these things. Like what? Why are we doing these things? And like he's sitting there, he's got his gun right on his hip. I was like, cool. And turns out that where the school was, it was Oneonta, New York, central upstate New York, Oneonta. We had a campus of 3,000 undergraduate students and another 1,500 graduate students. And we had in the mid-aughts 6 transgender people on the campus, students. This is a huge number at the time, huge number. And he started to ask me questions about why are they coming here? His tone communicated a curiosity, an urgency, and a little bit of judgment, but I wasn't sure, so I had to check it out. And I decided to take a piece of it. So I said, they feel safe here. In part because it's possible that they feel invisible because they don't have to stay on campus and they can afford to live in a neighboring community, which is not possible in New York City or Long Island, where other campuses were. Anyway, fast forward several months and another hot tub visit where I learned a family member was navigating their gender exploration through language. And all of a sudden, I recognized that it took him some time to develop a certain level of trust with me, and the investment of time and slow. And we moved at the speed of trust. My education and letting him know the things that I wanted to accomplish we moved at the speed of trust. And I want to say that at the end of my tenure at that school, students of color who had interfaced with the university police on things that were happening on campus would call him directly and built relationships with him and were co-signing him as somebody who was a safe person who at minimum, had the intention to create community. And so that's my story, and how it related to trust, and it enhanced the experience. But I also had to operate with a certain patience and curiosity, and I couldn't move to judgment because it was a culture and a community I had not a lot of foundation in, and I had to self-regulate all of my fears, if that makes sense. So I hope that answers some of the question for the woo-woo. Like, we're investing in people and in where they are, and we can't get hung up on the words that we use. That's the reason why, like what Mark was saying earlier, like, what do you think, why do you think inclusion was invented as a word? Because they didn't want to talk about diversity anymore, right? Why do you think we started using the acronym? Because we know people weren't listening. We could, so now the tensions and the stuff are being revealed, but they've always been there. So I want to invite into the room, and I just want to say that we have I'm thoughtful of time, but what 1 or 2 nuggets, let's just say 1 nugget, and then we'll invite 2 or 3 nuggets from the wise folks that are here with all the experience that you have in terms of the question, what small thing we could practice or shift in our respective workplaces to create more of a transformative community or enhance listening, reflection, or trust. The microphone is where? Over there. And I'm over here. So just wave your hands in the air, and in the chat, I'll give my friend here.
Hello. We were talking about listening, and I think, sorry, Sean Moore, Director DE&I, Ross Dress for Less, visit us today. We're down the street. But we were talking about listening, and I think the thing that really drove that home for me was listen to what's not being said and leave space for it. Because a lot of times people will say a lot of words and not have said anything, but physically their demeanor will say everything else. And I liked your example about the getting red in the face, but also you said something about the somatic part of it, like the body shape positioning says everything. And I was sharing a story about somebody I'm mentoring who was giving me a lot of words about her relationship with her supervisor, but then like, I don't feel you. I feel like you're saying something else. Like you feel it. And then that broke it open because then she said yes and explained really what was going on. And I think that's the listening that we need to do sometimes to make that transformation for people. Because I could have walked away, oh, it's all good. She says it's good. And it really wasn't good.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Anything in the chat? Okay.
So we had one participant share some knowledge or some insights here. So one approach, if your company has developed a strong purpose and or established values, one can start a meeting asking one participant to choose to speak for 1 minute about what the company's purpose or values mean to them. It's a slightly different way to do reflection at the start of a meeting.
Oh, I love it. All right, that sounds like a good nugget. Any other?
Thank you. Edmund Gilbert, Aramark, manager for workplace practices. Excited to be here. And one thing I think we could incorporate in our respective workplaces that could bring us closer to a transformative community is something that you did actually much throughout your presentation, is allowing members within a meeting or a conference setting to wait before responding, to think. Take a couple minutes. You don't need to be the first one to raise your hand or answer. Take some time to think. Write it down. I think at least within some corporate settings, there could be pressure to have the answer always and to move quickly, as notated before too. But allowing that time to think and take pause can really add to that transformative community and culture.
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel McGee. I am a software engineering manager with Accenture, one of the sponsors for the event here today. And I'm taking away two things that I felt sort of are pushing me as a leader. One of those was around the listening. I recently heard a term that sounded very close to much of what we discussed today, where we talk about generous listening. One of my issues is that I can't get this to shut up long enough for me to hear what someone else is endeavoring to offer me. And so I've just been trying to adjust my language around my communication with other people by thinking of it as an offering. Someone is offering me something, and so I need to silence the noise and really just take in what they're saying. In that same respect, I have individuals on my team. I work with engineers and coders, and they're not always the most communicative and bright people. And so I want to give them an opportunity to have the chance to reflect on something that's being discussed, to really sort of think about it and take it in. So when we talk about reflection, like I'm feeling after your presentation, and really just in the way that you've sort of run the presentation, in the way that you sort of, in your movement, I'm seeing a new way for me to engage and interact with them that leaves space for them not to have to prove that they have the right answer the second somebody is finished speaking. Let it breathe. Just give it a minute. Let it cook. And then when we've all had a chance to sort of think, when more than one hand is up, when more than one person has now, re-rested their attention on me, okay, now maybe let's engage. And also, I want to be sure who I'm engaging first. I want to give the quiet, the introvert, the opportunity to say something. Otherwise, those people are just getting rolled by my louder resources. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to Glorilla for being a thought leader in this.
Thank you to Glow.
Thank you to Glorilla. She has a song and it's Let Her Cook. Okay. So here's another framing that we can use. Just drop it in the meeting and say, okay, I'm looking for ideas or pieces of ideas that we can build on here or later, right? So like, I'm looking for ideas and not fully formulated plans right now, right? So like now we've just expanded what somebody can offer, because it's true, right? Like, and I do believe that there are bad ideas. I'll say that. But when you're asking for pieces of ideas, then all of a sudden, a fully formulated idea, a concept is not being requested, right? I'm asking for imperfect one as well. Or let's start with the most far out ideas and work our way back to practical. The other thing is using digital devices that say, throw all your ideas up on the dock, on the live dock, and like, let's just look at it, review it, and what do we want to start with, right? Because that also levels the playing fields, because then the most eloquent in the room, typically, their idea tends to be followed because they have the gift of eloquence. And sometimes if we have noise happening in our head, then maybe we can't fully refine our words enough to like speak eloquently, right? But it doesn't mean that our contribution should be rendered useless or meaningless or not giving consideration. So okay, digital doc and asking for the imperfect idea or the far out, or like really splitting good and bad, splitting the binary into a continuum of ideas, and asking people to plot it on the continuum of ideas, if that makes sense. Hopefully that was a sexy idea. All right, so, okay, well now we're gonna play something. It's a thing that I like to do. On your tables, Megan, somebody with the slides. My thingy won't work. Okay. I see. All right. So on your tables is a little baggie with more connected humans experience tokens, beliefs for change. On there are 5, and in the Zooms, you have the images here. You're in the chat, you're gonna see all 5. Let your guard down. That's where the heart speaks. Not everything blooms fast. Trust the slow miracles. Remind someone they matter, it echoes. Connection is the thread, keep weaving. And humility makes space for everyone to rise. And of these ideas, they're one of them on the tokens in the bags, you have 2 of each. And choose one message or belief that resonates with you, that you just feel drawn to, or feels like, yep, that's true. And then I'm gonna have people in the room move about, and on Zoom, we're gonna randomly plop you into a pair conversation. And in that pair, you're gonna discuss what your message, how that connects to transforming community into a more inclusive space. And specifically talk about, like, I want you to practice active listening. It's gonna be hard, but you're gonna do it. And then invite personal insight and experience into the room. This is where we want you to. And if you want a token and somebody took your token and there wasn't enough for you, then go look on the tables. And so don't, if there's only 2 people at your table, don't pocket 8 tokens. I mean, at the end you can, but like put it out there in case one of your colleagues really wants to keep weaving, okay? So put them out there. Don't be like that. Mark wants you to be like that, but I don't. And so so the room, you're gonna go zoom to 3 different places, and in the room, you're gonna find 3 different people. I'm gonna put music on. So Megan, you can give them the directions and zoom into your rooms. Here, I'm going to give you some music, and this is where I'm going to invite you to stand up. And your job is to move from where your spot is to the furthest spot from where you stand. And you're going to keep mingling until I stop the music, and then you're going to have this conversation that's here. We're going to do a slide advance. I invite you to, are we dance battling? Okay. I am a fan of inviting the wisdom of the group, because far be it from me to think I know everything about everything. I do not. So I want to create some space and room for you all to share what you are taking with you from your experience today. And it is not, and I don't want to limit it to what it is that I'm offering you, because I'm taking from today a whole host of things, right? So my invitation is a more expansive look on that question. Or what will you do to transform your workplace? If it's something new, all the better. And so we're going to do, we have a couple of mics over there, over here, over here, over here. And then the chat too.
I think my name is Momin. I'm from Target. But I think I'll throw it back to you. I think like the language, like the tone, your body language, like that was very inclusive and accessible. I think working in the corporate environment, it's very easy to like maybe be attracted towards words or language that is corporate familiar. But you made it very easy in a very inclusive way that it was very easy to understand these very complex topics that often like you forget about. I maybe don't think about on a day-to-day basis. I think that made a big difference and impact to me personally from my experience.
I appreciate you saying that. I just want to say it's a risk I'm willing to take because I'm outside of an organization. And like many people here, I learned to code switch. But I also realized that when I did, what I feel intrinsically, if whatever it is that like can translate into wisdom or knowledge or whatever, I found myself performing took precedent over genuine share. And I realized that I could access wisdom, knowledge, information in a deeper way when I didn't have to perform. And that's the reason why I'm willing to risk in the ways that I risk. But I also say, there's always like that kind of, there's a balance there. And I'm edgy, but with rounded corners. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, thank you. I appreciate that affirmation and acknowledgement, but also like the invitation for others to try it on in safe spaces. And I do believe in micro communities of support, whether you start with your department and transform culture within the context of a smaller space. And then all of a sudden, there are organizations that do micro communities, transformational micro communities, and say, okay, this is how we're going to deal with each other. This is our culture in our leadership team, or this is our culture in our department. And all of a sudden, 2 departments have signed on for the same level of trust, honor, like authenticity, and so on and so forth. And then when those departments work, fireworks, because they can be themselves. And so the madness is, how do we expand that so that we can build trust and have that ripple? So thank you for that. Any other, like, what will you do to transform your workplace, or what are you taking away from your experience today? Anything in the chat?
We have a few things in the chat. So one participant said, so many nuggets. The one that stands out for me is inclusion starts with I, that responsibility and accountability and community that Reverend Mark spoke to in the opening remarks. Quite fundamental and yet powerful for me now. Thank you.
Hit me with a second. Let's amplify those voices.
Another participant said, great learning and energizing event. Thanks to the presenters, breakout room partners, and special thanks to Mark and the Tannenbaum team. Another said, I loved how the tokens evoked stories and insights. And going off of that, everyone chose different tokens that resonated. I love the connection is the thread. Keep weaving. Grateful for the connections made virtually here. I will keep holding space for others to share, learn, and grow.
Beautiful. Any other in the room?
Thank you so much for this. I got a lot of affirmation about my decision to have left my workplace and go into business for myself, which I did at the end of last year. Thank you. But part of my work is with a few different interfaith organizations, and part of my work is being a music therapist and doing bereavement groups, helping people with grief, and also individual sessions. But I think for my group work, which I'm getting ready to kind of launch on my own soon, the listening, reflection, and trust definitions that you offered will help me to teach people how to be members of a support group. And so I think that provides a lovely framework for me to incorporate with my own experiences, because people do have to learn how to support one another when they're going through a really vulnerable time. So thank you so much.
And I want to say that touched me deeply, because sometimes when we're in this work, it feels like far removed. You know what I mean? You want to feel useful, and if there's a use for it, all the better. So thank you for helping me feel useful today. Any other? Yeah.
So first of all, this is Maksud from Merck. I am the global lead for the Interfaith Organization for Merck. Just want to say thanks to that today we have a lot to learn, and we learn a lot of things, and we experience a lot as well. And many of the colleagues already mentioned many things, but I just want to reflect one thing here. When we had a panel discussions, when the Accenture and the people were talking about that, where they are in their journey. That's a journey, right? So where they are in the journey. So really that reflects me that, okay, I mean, we have been in the journey in Merck for the last 12 years as well. So we got some experience. We still need to learn as well, right? So might be there will be a chance. I was just talking to Cole as well on that one. We connect again with all those people there. They are in different journeys, in a different companies. That how we can learn from each other, and we can grow together as well. Because this is the topic that we have talking right now. It's very critical. Because the world the world is going on, right? Only what I believe, only and only the faith can bring us the harmony in this world. So really, I would like to connect with the other colleagues from the different organization, and to make if there is a chance to make a big conference with all together. Thank you.
I heard a rumor there was cocktails later, so maybe there's some space. I don't know. Other? Right here. You got it, sis? Okay. Anything from the chat? Okay.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Kimberly. I'm from Princeton. A couple of things that were said here really resonated with me. I'll tell you that we've been doing more work around dignity and being able to understand and see one another. And I really appreciated this opportunity to network with people, right? We find that sometimes, or I'll speak for myself, I find that sometimes, like, I look at my calendar and I say, oh, there's no time. There's no time to do this to a high enough standard for myself. And I think you showed the value of, even when you have just a minute to connect with someone, taking the time to do that. Like, in this world of cancellation, we're worried about saying the wrong thing, but it's impossible for us to have walked in everyone's path. And so you demonstrated the importance of taking a small token like these coins and asking someone why they chose what they chose, because you gain another perspective that allows you to see someone as a human and to understand and be more curious about the path and the learning and the experience that they have, which allows us to be a student and a teacher all throughout our lives. So I will try to implement that in my work every day and carve time out to get to see people for who they are. So thank you.
Oh, it's beautiful, beautifully. So, I titled this Rooted to Rise. And sometimes people think the rootedness is about like 10 toes down or like being with resolve. And that's certainly important at times. But it is exactly what you were talking. What is your name? What Kimberly said about storytelling and our internal narratives that we are holding about other people, ourselves, the nature of work, the nature of conflict. And so it's really about exploring our roots and recognizing that our capacity to rise, move forward, move upwards, move towards what it is that we desire is integrally connected to our roots, right? Cultural, religious, familial, and so on. And we have the ability to kind of expand our relationships and our orientation to those things. But the one thing I want to leave you with is that we're doing this together. And there's not much you can do individually as much as you can do in relationship. And we can use each other to kind of support each other. I'm going to say I put 2 QR codes. One is in LinkedIn, and the other is the More Connected Humans contact list, which you can sign up for or not. But I'm a big fan of microblogging because not everybody has a lot, and I don't mean like Twitter. I broke up with Twitter. But don't fan the flame, Sean. He's right. But 2-minute blogs on reflection and so on and so forth so that you can read it and have some reflection imbued in your day. And so I post them all the time and I give everything for free. So I want to invite you to kind of engage with the materials at times and to use them as sparks for your staff. And I just want to say there are no walls between the gifts of deep listening, trust, building, between work, family. Because I'm thinking about caregivers and a lot of the friction that families have about being caregivers is because we're not building the connection before the need arises. And so make those investments in yourself and in each other. And I look forward to staying in connection with you. And my name is Eva, by the way, Vega. And it's very nice to see you, and I'll see you at the bar. I heard allegedly. Allegedly.